Welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast, where we dish on everything from the alpha male to the sensitive soul. If you found yourself lusting after a fictional character, you've come to the right place. Here's your hosts, Faith Andrews, Elizabeth Grace, Livia Jammerland, and B.A. Wolf.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast. This is episode 4. I'm Elizabeth Grace, and today we're going to be talking about Karina Halle's book, Love in English. So stay tuned. First, though, we're going to talk about what all the girls are up to. And I'm going to start with Faith today because the day that we're taping this is a big day for her. She just released a book. So, Faith, why don't you tell us about your new release?
Hey guys, thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited. Today's release day. It's like author birthday, book day, so I'm very excited. Released my 5th book, Feel Again, today. Contemporary romance, second chance love story. And I'm just riding that high right now, so I'm really excited. And what am I working on? I'm working on a spin-off of Feel Again right now, but I'm taking my sweetest time. Sorry about that. So, Liv, what are you working on right now?
Hi, everyone. First of all, happy 2015. Happy New Year. I know the last time we all spoke, it was last year. I hope everybody had a really good holiday. What am I working on? Edits for Contingent, the final book in the Consensual series. This has been the hardest book I've ever written because I am now a new mommy and juggling writing, editing, being a wife, being a mommy. Oof. Faith, you should have told me this was pretty hard. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. What about you, Elizabeth? What are you working on?
I actually am getting ready to release the 3rd book in my new adult series. It's called Collateral Damage, and so that's going to drop on February 19th. So I'm just, going to the line editors in the next day or two. So I'm excited about that. And Babs, what are you working on?
Gosh, I feel kind of like a loser. You guys have all these awesome things going on, and I'm just riding this wave of, I just released Stay last year in October, which was the sequel to my debut. So right now I'm actually just working on A Secret Whip. It doesn't have a title, doesn't have a blurb, nothing, but it's 25,000 words in, so I'm hoping that it's good and fabulous, and I can hopefully get some information and a teaser out to everyone soon. But until then, my lips are sealed. Sorry, ladies. All right, back to you, Elle.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it, Babs. Okay, so we're going to do our usual segments. I'm going to tell you, we're going to go through the book blurb. I'll tell you a bit about sort of how the book's set up in the beginning. We're going to do our usual I wish I wrote that, our swoon-worthy moments, our casting, all the fun stuff that we normally do. So I'm going to start by saying I'm very excited to be doing this book. I pitched this book to the girls. I was like, you have to meet Mateo. You guys, we have to read this book because I'm a huge fan of Karina's. If she releases a book, I'm one-clicking it and reading it. So I'm super excited. And if you haven't read this book, there will be some spoilerish things in our talk today. It's just you can't get around it. So if you prefer to know nothing, go buy the book, then come back and watch the rest of the podcast. So I'll start with the blurb, which is actually a bit of a long one, so stay with me, but it perfectly sets up how the novel is structured. So, he's 38, I'm 23. He speaks Spanish, I speak English. He lives in Spain, I live in Canada. He dresses in $1,000 suits, I'm covered in tattoos. He's married and has a 5-year-old daughter. I'm single and can't commit to anyone or anything. Until now, because when they say that you can't choose who you fall in love with, boy, ain't that the fucking truth. To a restless dreamer like Vera Miles, it sounded like the experience of a lifetime. Instead of spending her summer interning for the astronomy major, she would fly to Spain, where she'd spend a few weeks teaching conversational English to businessmen and women, all while enjoying free room and board at an isolated resort. But while Vera expected to get a tan, meet some new people, and stuff herself with wine and paella, she never expected to fall in love. Mateo Casales is unlike anyone Vera has ever known, let alone anyone she's ever usually attracted to. While Vera is a pierced and tatted free spirit with a love for music and freedom, Mateo is a successful businessman from Madrid with altruism and cocky Latino charm. Yet, as you go on, you grow increasingly close, and the relationship changes from platonic to something more. Something that makes Vera feel alive for the first time. Something that can never, ever be. Or so she thinks. So, that basically sets the book. We have Vera Miles, who is a Canadian. Yay! And she's traveling to Spain. Her parents are split up. She lives with her mom, but she's always sort of felt like she was the black sheep of the family. She's very spirit. She has, reddish hair, tats all over her body, and she's never quite felt like she's fit in with her family. Now, her mom and her have, I won't say a horrible relationship, but her older sister is sort of like the pride and glory of the family, and her mom's been, in my opinion, a little hard on Vera. So she goes to Spain to spend the summer teaching Spanish people conversational English and to learn a little Spanish herself. And basically she's just looking for a new adventure in between the time when school is off and it's going to start again in the fall. And that's where she meets Mateo. So actually, Babs, do you want to tell us how they first meet in the book?
Of course. So picture this. Vera is in Spain. She's late. She's trying to catch a bus. They have to take her to the bus that's going to be now waiting for her. So she's kind of flustered. She feels bad because she's late. She made this bus stop and wait for her so she could get on it and they can head to the resort. So she gets in, and right away I'm thinking, okay, we're going to meet him soon. We're going to meet him soon. Oh, we meet him soon. So we get there. She's walking down the aisle trying to find an empty seat. The suspense is building, like where's she going to sit? And you just know in your heart she's going to be sitting next to Mateo. You just know it. Boom, she sits next to Mateo. So here is a little quote. It was beside a man who was staring out the window, chin resting thoughtfully on his fist. I only had a good moment to take him in unabashedly before I had to sit down. After that, staring at him would become really awkward. And for some reason, I wanted to stare at him. So she's coming in, she finally sits down, and you just don't want to not stare at him, but this is why. He was the stereotype of what I thought a Spanish man would look like. All dark looks and mysterious ways, and judging by his neatly pressed dark gray pants and the size of his Rolex on his wrist, he was a successful one at that. Wow. So, okay, they've met. Enter, meet, cute. So they begin this little conversation, and he introduces himself, and right away, it's kind of like a hook, line, and sinker. Like, you see this sweet man. And that's until she sees his wedding ring, and you're like, dun, dun, dun. Now, for me, I didn't read the synopsis. I never do. So I was like, yeah, like, really? Oh, so you know it's coming. But, so that's how they meet. I hope y'all have a good clue on that now. How about your thoughts on Mateo, Al? What did you think?
You know what? Can we switch and talk about the cheating aspect first? I know I actually put it that we're going to talk a little later, but this is probably a good time. Because
it's a great time.
Okay, so everybody's like, oh, I know that there's readers that are like, oh, I hate cheating in a book, I can't read it. So yes, there is cheating in this book. So let's talk about if it bothered you or not. So Liv, did the cheating aspect in the book bother you as a reader?
Not at all. It was Mateo. Like, I was, again, when I first was reading it, I knew there was cheating involved because I read her warning in the beginning of the book where she's like, there is an affair that happens. I'm like, like, usually when it's cheating with like a boyfriend or girlfriend, I really don't mind, but when vows are exchanged, I'm like, it's like really like a really hard, it's really hard for me to get into it. So I'm reading it and I'm reading it and I'm reading it, and it's like, I guess the way Karina built their relationship, you fell in love with them. Like, you were just rooting for them the whole time, that the cheating just went out the window. You're like, who cares about your stupid wife? Just do her already. And so to me, there was no problem whatsoever with the cheating. I actually liked it because Vera had so much guilt inside of her. She didn't want to be the other woman. She kept, because she came from parents who were divorced as well, and her dad had another woman. So she was like, no. She was fighting it the whole time, but it's just, you can't fight love. What did you think about it, Barb?
Okay, so I normally never mind it in a book, okay? I really don't. And in fact, I didn't have a problem with it because of, like what Liv said, it was built really slowly. And to me, that's what I love in a book. I don't normally fall for the insta-love. I want to see them friends first. I want to see their connection first. And then I want to see the relationship bloom. And I want to see them realize that, oh my gosh, we've built not just a friendship, but love on top of all of this. And so that's what I liked. That's where I think it made it okay. It didn't become a problem for me until the end. There's an 80% mark, and I had a really, really, really hard time with it. And I think there's a few reasons why I did versus maybe somebody else. I don't have kids, you know, and that could be a lot into it. But I was okay with it. You could see their relationship build, and had it been something that was right from the get-go, like they pounced each other on the bus that they met on, I might have had a problem with that. But because, you know, you got to see this beautiful relationship build, a friendship, that's what I love. I love friendships first. And so I think I was okay with it then. But yes, in the end of the book, I was not so happy. So I'm hoping for Love in Spanish to kind of fix that, my Mateo bandwagon a little bit. How about you, Faith?
First, I just want to say that as far as it goes in book worlds, that authors, here goes this dog again. I apologize, guys, for this monster barking behind us. He apparently doesn't like cheating. So, as far as me, I think it's very, not sad, I won't say sad, but I hate the fact that we even have to put that in the front of a book, like, warning, there's cheating. Like, so you have to write, warning, there's, I don't know, a girl with blue hair. Like, it's just, why does it, that's part of the book. Like, this is what happened. I hate that there even has to be that warning sign. But, okay, I get that this is a soft subject for people. But, no, it didn't bother me. And I'll tell you why it didn't bother me was, like you guys said, the way that they incorporated how they felt for each other. Like you said, it wasn't a wham bam thank you ma'am, and he just completely disregarded his vows for his wife. You also find out that he doesn't have the best relationship with his wife. He's really not in it for the right reasons. And again, it's something that's led up to, and you see that these people can't live without each other. And yes, Vera was so reluctant and felt so guilty time and time again about making sure this didn't happen. So no, cheating was absolutely not an issue at all for me.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it either. I kind of took it like, you know, Mateo's not in a happy relationship. It wasn't like he met Vera and then decided he didn't want to be with his wife. Like, you'd already see that, you know, there was that seed had already been planted well before they met. I think, too, that I kind of took it like these two people were fated for each other, and it's just like the timing was off. You know, like if they had met before he got married, they still would have probably fallen in love, and had they met, you know, 2 years down the road, he may already be divorced from his wife, and they still would have fallen in love. So it wasn't an issue for me. So, okay. So yes, now let's talk about Mateo. So when did we fall in love with him? Honestly, I fell in love with him like on the bus. I found his demeanor
on the bus.
Like, on the bus. Like, honestly, like as soon as they met, I was like, I liked the language barrier. They had a cute little interchange there. And you could just see that he was going to be really charming. So I was already, like, seriously, I was falling for him, like, in their first conversation when they were having a bit of issue, and he was taking things very literally, and she was talking about being a lightweight and getting buzzed, and, you know, he was, like, you know, trying to understand what lightweight means and is buzzing like a bee, and anyways, I just thought it was totally cute. What about you, Liv? When did you really start liking Mateo?
I have a thing with questions. I don't know why, but when he was like, I'm going to ask you a question every day while I'm here for the 3 weeks, because originally he was going to stay for 3 weeks, but then he extended his stay. So when he was like, you know, I'm going to ask you a question every day, I thought that was very cute. It was like his inside way of like trying to get to know her better. And it was like, you know, he was always asking like the most random questions, and it also made her think about her life, like with certain questions that he'd ask her, like he would ask her about her family, and then it made her think deeper about like her bad relationship with her mom and her sister and whatnot. So that's when I fell in love with him. What about you, Faith?
For me, usually if you go back to these things, I always say I fall right away, but I didn't. Not that I did not swoon over him on that bus and think that he was definitely mysterious. That's so what drew me in from the get-go, this mysterious Spanish god, as she put him. But I love that he was very relatable and real, in the fact that he didn't just come off as this, like, you know, this snotty, snooty guy who's, you know, makes all this money and wearing a suit and whatever. He needed her for what, you know, he was there for, to learn English. And I agree with Elle that it was so cute that they had this little banter back and forth about, you know, what got lost in translation. But for me, as far as when I really, really fell for him was when he started to be honest with Vera about his feelings for her. And so I think it started to be, like, I think it was close to the end of their time together when he said the whole what is love in Spanish, what is love in English, that whole, I don't want to give any of that away because I just thought that was so beautifully written. So for me, I think it was when he started to really give his true emotions about Vera. Who has to go yet? Who's next? Elle, what about you?
Babs.
Oh,
Babs,
I'm
actually.
sorry.
Over here, geez, lady.
I'm sorry. Dog, it's
You
confusing.
don't want to hear about what I have to say about Mateo. Okay, so when I fell in love with him, so I enjoyed him right away. It wasn't that I didn't. I totally fell for his character. I loved the getting to know you phase. I loved their their siestas were probably one of my favorite parts because I was like, okay, he's totally trying to put on the moves. But he wasn't. He was just genuinely wanting her to have a siesta, like go take a nap, you little 2-year-old. So I think that's what I loved most. But that's what I loved. Like he was genuine about everything that he had to do and to say to her, to ask her. Like he was very genuine. But when I fell in love with him was when they were at, I think it was part 3 of the book. So she's now in Madrid back with him after, their schooling was over. She was already, she was in Canada. Now we're in part 3. So she's back. No, actually, I take it back. Sorry, she's still in Canada. So she's in Canada. She's not with him anymore, but they're talking on the phone every day. And it was when she decided she was going to try and take a few days and not speak to him, and she realized then how much she truly missed him and loved him. So she called him, and he answered his phone, and he wasn't the same. Like he was speaking in Spanish, and he was trying to avoid the conversation. Well, then 10 minutes later, he called her back, and it was right then that I fell in love with him because he was so utterly concerned about her. And I have to read the quote because you're going to get little goosebumps too. Vera, he said, his voice shaking. Oh, Vera, my Estrella, what happened? I couldn't speak for some time. Finally, I was able to say, I miss you. I miss you so much. I miss you too. Oh, Estrella, my star, you have no idea. I have been so worried about you. You haven't answered my calls or my emails. I think you don't love me anymore. My heart has been breaking. I mean, seriously, past the tissues. Like, that was when I fell in love with him. Like, I actually felt, I knew he loved her, but this to me was just, he was over the moon in love with her. Like, he couldn't control it. Okay, so that's when I fell in love with him. So most swoon-worthy moment, how about you, Al?
My most swoon-worthy moment is everything's coming to a head, and it's the night before she has to leave and go back to Canada, and they've kind of discussed each other, but they haven't really like come right out and said how they're feeling. So I'll just read the quote because this is like my most swoon-worthy moment ever. Okay, so she says, I can't, and she's kind of getting mad at him here because they're sort of avoiding the topic of what's going on. So she says, I can't pretend any longer, I blurted out, surprising myself. I had reached my limit. He had stopped, standing absolutely still, his back to me. He's either going to start walking again or he's going to turn around. I held in my breath. With his back to me, he said, no, we can't. I have one last question for you. That wasn't what I expected. Questions were dangerous. What? I asked softly. He slowly turned around. What is love in English? I raised my brows. Love in English is love. What in English? I was so enthralled by his hypnotic eyes I could barely remember. Amore? He shook his head ever so slightly. No. Love in Spanish is you. And I was like, oh my God, when I read that, I was like, because I could picture it perfectly, like them on the patio outside, everyone's eating dinner, and like, oh my God, I was like, I wanted to cry when I read it. I was like, that is the fucking sweetest thing I ever heard. So nice. I gave a clench. Liv, what about you? What was your most swoon-worthy moment?
Probably still everyone. That whole suit. I think that whole. I think that's everybody's most swoon-worthy moment because that's when, the guy's like, you are my love in Spanish. Like, that's, you translate to love to me in Spanish, and you're just like, but I love the fact that she was like, right in that, they're arguing still, and he's like, she turns to him, and she's like, I don't want to be that other woman, and he's like, no, you already are. Like, so that whole entire scene for me, I think it was like even that whole entire chapter was my biggest swoon-worthy moment. And then if I had to pick one, since we're trying to pick different ones so, the viewers get to see, I love when he turned to her and he said to her, You and I, we were always a memory in the making. I just thought, yes, I love him. I mean, of course, the love in English and love in Spanish is definitely the most swoon-worthy moment in the whole entire book, but that came in for a close second for me. What about you, Faith?
I have the same thing, guys. I have the whole love in Spanish, love in English thing, but without giving anything away, I think, because I really don't want to give the ending away, but I think the end was my favorite. I think to me that's when you really knew. Again, I'm trying to do this without spoilers here, but I just think that at that point there were so many things going on, in the back and forth, not knowing if she was going to give in to him and he's going to give in to her and what he's doing with his wife and blah, blah, blah. I think finally at that moment, I don't want to say where it happens, up in the air somewhere, but where you know that he's,
I just got onto that one.
Yeah.
She's
that
tired,
moment,
y'all.
that's the swoon-worthy moment for me. That he, he's all in, So,
yeah,
that's it for me.
All right.
What about you, Babs?
Mine, okay, so it's the same moments. So it's the awards ceremony, and so I have two because I know it's all the same moment. It is that one big final pimple to a head scene where everything's just exploding. Sounds super disgusting, I know, but it's super lovey, I promise. So she's saying how Liv said, I don't want to be the other woman, and he says, you already are, whether you want to be or not. You've bewitched me, Vera. You've blinded me. You've made me forget my vows. And all you had to do was shine. He swallowed hard, his eyes piercing into me. Do you not know how I feel about you? Okay, so that was swoon-worthy moment number one. Number two, I would rather have this problem than not have you at all. Don't you feel the same? I mean, you just want to hold him and hug him and tell him it's all going to be okay. He's just so fabulous.
So let's talk about Vera for a second. Oh, Liv, sorry, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, besides that, the guy's like a great lay. I mean, not that we've experienced it. I was bringing it up. But it's just the way, she writes. I mean, I've never read anything from Karina before, not because I don't like her or whatever. I've never had the opportunity of reading any of her books. I have them on my TBR. But yeah, I instantly became a ginormous Karina Halle fan because her writing is beautiful, and then that sex scene, oh my God.
What did Mateo say? Something along the lines of Spanish, don't make love, they fuck. Is that what it was?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
In Spain, we fuck and we make love. Keep looking at me. I was just like, dude, I'm hook, line, and sinker that one. He was amazing. And I just imagine, his soccer athlete body, nice and tan, dark hair. Oh, sorry. As you were saying, let's talk about Vera.
Okay, now let's talk about Vera, y'all.
Do you need a moment, Liv?
Okay. I'm going to be color my shirt soon.
Right. Okay, so Faith, what did you think about Vera?
I loved her than anything else you're reading, especially because she's just this wild child. I think the picture on the cover totally portrays her perfectly, this wild, crazy hair, just throwing caution to the winds, the tattoos all over her body. I like that although she seemed very reckless and appearance-wise, you can tell even from the very get-go of the beginning of the book that this is not her. She really isn't reckless. She doesn't want to be reckless. Yeah, she kind of screws around. She's been sleeping around for her short 23 years, but I don't know. I really loved her. I thought she was very relatable, and the way Karina wrote her was beautiful, and you could tell that she, for 23, was very complex character, but I loved her, and I think that in hindsight, reading the rest of the book and seeing them as a couple, I think they complement each other so well, and that I think was one of the reasons I loved her so much. What about you, Elle?
Yeah, no, I loved Vera. I loved that she was a free spirit, and she's sort of complex in the sense that she was really herself. I mean, she's covered in tats, and she wore what she wanted, but at the same time, she had this vulnerability to her that I really liked, underneath the tough girl shell, where she wasn't 100% confident being who she was because she knows that people are judging her for tats and the wild hair and that type of thing. So that's sort of what I was thinking. What about you, Babs?
So my biggest thing was I thought she was really mature for her age. A lot of the situations that she was put in, I probably wouldn't have handled the same. And I mean, I'm not that much older than her, but I think I'm only a year older than 20. Just kidding. Obviously, that's a lie.
Yeah, screw you.
She was really mature for her age, but I think what I loved most about her is she was definitely the perfect example of don't judge a book by its cover. She did not judge by image. She would have some stereotypes about Mateo, but she loved what was inside, and that was what I loved most. Is she didn't care that she had tattoos because she knew who she was inside. She didn't care that Mateo had business slacks on. She loved what he was inside. So I think that was my biggest thing of why I loved her so much. What about you, Liv?
What I loved about Vera, she was adventurous. Like, at 23, I wouldn't go to a country and go teach random people Spanish, teach them English. I found her to be very, very adventurous. That's what I really loved about her. I loved all her tattoos and how, she loved all the stars and the meanings behind them. So yeah, to me, she was definitely adventurous. What about you, Elle?
Okay, well, I already said that. So, but let's move to I wish I wrote that.
I love it.
Sorry.
We can just edit that out.
No, it's okay.
I forgive you. You have a newborn at home. I'm impressed that you're still awake at this time of night. Okay, so let's talk about I wish I wrote that. So, Liv, what is your I wish I wrote that in Love and English?
I wish I wrote the whole damn freaking book, to be quite honest, because Karina is just absolutely amazing. I will be fangirling over her. And the funny part is I've met her like a handful of times. Mm-hmm. So I could have been like, hugging her, squeezing her till her little eyeballs popped out a long time ago. But my I wish I wrote that was when Vera is talking to Claudia and she's telling her that you can't fall in love with a week. You can't fall in love in a week. And she said, and Claudia replies, you could fall in love in a second. The heart has no regard for time. To me, that was the biggest I wish I wrote that, because that's such a beautiful meaning. Your heart has no idea, the time span of falling in love. It just falls in love. So that's my I wish I wrote that. What about you, Faith?
That was my number one pick. But I will say that this is the noisiest house, Goldstein. I would like to say that, like Liv said, I wish I wrote the whole damn book. But Claudia, to me, her friend Claudia, was just full of insightful, beautiful little things. I don't know. Maybe it's that maybe Karina wrote it the way she did, that it was like people. I guess when you don't speak the same language, you speak more literally, and I feel like she spoke very literally, and like, I don't know, you just really, I can't explain it. But if I'm gonna pick a favorite I wish I wrote that, it's coming from literally the first page. So that's how you know that I wish I wrote the whole book. So I think it's a prologue. I don't think it was chapter 1. I think it's the prologue when Vera's basically saying she was a villain and love is a villain and whatever. So this is how it goes. This dog. Love causes war and causes death, breaks souls and breaks lives. It runs people into the ground, makes them behave like moronic moral beasts, or it dances off, leaving only destruction in its wake. Hearts blown wide open for the world to see. Love puts the blame on the poor souls who succumb to it. Love, that ultimate villainess, she makes an example of us all. And I just thought it was so true and beautifully said, even though it's horrible, but it's true. I feel it. So who's next? Elle, did you do yours? Did you do yours?
No, I can go. No problem. Okay, so mine wrote that was where he says, and actually somebody already mentioned it earlier, but I'll just read it anyways. And he says to her, but you will be. After tomorrow, all this will be a memory. His eyes held such soft sadness. You and I were always a memory in the making. And I just loved that. I just thought it was very poetic and very deep. So that was my I wish I wrote that. But I agree. I would love to have just written the whole damn book. What about you, Babs?
Okay, so mine's short, sweet, to the point because it's just, you're going to get goosebumps. You watch it, ladies. Like, look at your skin. You ready? Seriously. His fingertips felt like whispers telling my skin secrets.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I highlighted that. Yes, I did.
Her writing is just such poetry. Like, I've never read a book where the word, like, you could literally highlight the entire page. There was not one sentence that I didn't want to highlight, but I had to limit myself because I was spending more time highlighting than I was reading. That's a problem because I'm like, we need to read the book, Barb, not savor, but you're savoring every moment. So that was my I wish I wrote it. You got goosebumps, didn't you? Just say it.
Yeah.
I know.
I liked it.
Totally.
I liked it. And actually, you know what? Can I just bring up this funny part?
Is it about the bicycle? Because that was like one of my favorite funny parts, and we have to talk about that.
It's one of the the misinterpretations of like a language barrier, and he says, I like it when you swear. And she says, well, it doesn't do me any favors when you get it confused with the literal sense. He stroked his chin in mock contemplation. I could hear the roughness of his beard on his fingers. So when you say things like fuck me or fuck you, you aren't really wanting to be fucked or to fuck another? That was just like, and I was picturing like you're attracted to this guy and he's talking about like, oh, you're not really, and I'd just be like, So anyways, I thought that was cute, so I just had to bring it up.
Okay, what about when she calls the girl bicycle, and so now he thinks that bicycle means bitch?
Yeah.
Like, you're a real bicycle. I'm going to go around saying that. Nobody will understand, but us girls and everybody else.
Okay, so casting. Who has some casting? Olivia?
Where's your picture, Elle? You always have a picture.
I do. Okay, I'll go first. So, I casted Pedro. And here's Pedro in a suit.
Yep, that is him.
Yeah, this is how I really pictured Mateo. So this is Pedro Solt, who's a model, but this is a pretty good close interpretation of how I was picturing the sexy Mateo Casares. What about you, Liv?
Elle, I think you should really go to Brazil. I happen to see that you like all the male models from Brazil.
Me too.
I kind of have a thing, I know. And now I can't find his name. What was his name? Who did I say he was? He was Carl from Love Actually. And now I'm trying to find him. But before I tell you what his real name is, I loved how, his name is Rodrigo Santoro, the younger version, not the recent version because he's kind of aging as well. Yeah. Like his Love Actual version is the one I went with. But what I really liked about what we were talking about earlier with all the funny things, I'm actually I'm an immigrant, so I migrated to the States when I was 6. So my brother has the really bad literal, like, broken English. So when I was reading this, I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to my brother. Because it's like, you can't say, my brother came here, he was 16, so he, like, it took him a while to get used to the language. So when I speak to my brother, there's certain things he's like, what does that mean? Like when you're talking slang. So that's what I really, really connected with the book for that reason. Barb, who is your cast?
Okay, so we have to visualize this because if you were to go Google him on Pinterest and see him now, you'd be like, ew, like what are you thinking, Barb? It's a younger Colin Farrell, okay? You've got to picture him younger, not beanie, not like scrunch, like he gets grungy. He gets grungy, you got to admit. So you got to get him in his non-grunge phase where there's this one picture where he's coming out of the water with a white button-down shirt. He's all soaked from head to toe, and you're just like, bam, that is Mateo. Not that he was ever in the water, but if he were in the water, that'd be Mateo. So there you go. What about you, Faith?
I had a real issue with this because he was perfect. Like there was no, I keep Googling like perfect Spanish man, and it wasn't coming up. I was like, all right, Enrique Iglesias, maybe. Then I settled. I'm going to say I settled, and this is a terrible thing to say about this beautiful man, but I settled on Eddie Cibrian because I just pictured that salt and pepperish type of tall, dark, handsome guy, and that demeanor. That's what I pictured. So I'm gonna stay solid on my Eddie Cibrian. That's my guy. There we go.
Let's see L's again. Put him up. Put him up. Yeah, that is so Mateo.
Right? Yeah, especially this one, right?
Yes, that one right there.
Pedro has been casted like so many other book boyfriends. Like
He's so damn hot. He's so damn hot.
People have
Get Pedro on the show. Let's get Pedro on the show. Work on it all.
I speak Portuguese. I could get him on the show. I remember when they were doing it for Christy Bromberg's Driven trilogy. Everybody's like, "Liv, can you translate what he's saying?"
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Work on it, girl. I don't see what the problem is.
Well, I think they're all good picks. So, okay, a few things before we go. Our next episode 5, is going to be on Love in Spanish, which is the continuation of Mateo and Vera's story, and it's told from the POV of Mateo. And if you loved Mateo in the first book, I swear to you, you're going to like love him even more in the second book because it's all from his POV, so it's even better. The other thing is we're hoping that we're going to have Karina on the show to do an interview, so fingers crossed that, you know, all the stars align and she's able to join us, so we'll see. So don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find everything at our website. If you don't know any of the links, you can find them at bookboyfriendpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, which is facebook.com/bookboyfriendpodcast. And if you want to email us any thoughts or comments, we're at bookboyfriendpodcast@gmail.com. So we appreciate you guys all joining us tonight, and we hope you all have a great week till we see you again. Bye, everybody.
Adios.
Bye. Ciao, Bella. Gonna go have a siesta.
Thanks for joining us. You can find out who will be on upcoming shows and what books we'll be discussing, as well as more about our hosts at www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. See you next time when we add another boyfriend to the ranks.